In this video, we're going to look at how to schedule a Zoom meeting. So go to zoom.us. I've already been logged into my account, so it automatically takes me in. Here you can create a meeting on the fly without scheduling it ahead of time by hovering over Host a Meeting and then selecting one of your options. I'm going to open one with video off and open Zoom. Join with audio. Here you can see the green moving, so that means my mic is carrying across into the Zoom meeting. So my ad hoc meeting allows me to then copy this URL, then I can go to my email or whatever and send it out to whoever may need the link to this meeting. I'm going to click on End Meeting so we can go and create a pre-scheduled meeting. When you end a meeting, especially if you're doing this with students, you're going to end meeting for all. If you just click on Leave Meeting, that allows everybody to stay in the meeting and converse, continue their conversation. So with students, you'll want to go ahead and cut it off for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Zoom. Click on your account. Should plop you into your profile setting. Here, make sure you have a profile picture, so when you don't have your video feed going as the host, it should have your picture showing there, so at least people can see who they're talking with. This is just some basic information about your account. We're going to click on Meetings. A couple of places you can click Schedule a New Meeting here or Schedule a Meeting up here. Both places get you to the same spot. Here, if you will, on your topic, you're just going to put in whatever your meeting is called. You're going to assign the date, an estimated duration. It should not kick you off if you go longer. I have not had that happen in any of my instances, but try to estimate how long it is. This is more about the calendar invitation afterwards, and so it kind of blocks off a whole hour of time so people will be aware to expect about an hour. You can set up a recurring meeting if you want to do that. Just be aware of having to work around weekends because it doesn't give you an option for just weekdays. So you would have to probably do a recurring meeting each week. So just be careful about how that is set up. You can select it to generate an automatic meeting ID. When that happens, it creates a new meeting ID for every scheduled meeting, or you can select personal meeting ID, which keeps it the same every time. So just think about maybe what your needs are and which one works best for you. An update that Zoom has made is that they now are going to require passwords on the free accounts, and this is just a way to help secure the environment for students. So I suggest requiring the password and having it something that you know what it is, so if somebody asks you can easily let them know what it is. And also it will include that in where you're going to copy and send out the invitation to. I typically keep the video off for host and participant. That just gives me that option to copy that URL if I need it. It also just gives me a moment so I can turn my video on when I'm really ready for it to be turned on, and same for the participants. That way they're in control of when they can turn that on or off. I typically just leave this on both. On the free accounts, your only option really is the computer audio right now. If you enable Join Before Host, that allows people to come into a meeting room and have conversations prior to the host being there. So if you're working with students, definitely turn this off. Do not put the check mark here. For everybody, I typically, as a good practice, mute everybody upon entry. That way, sometimes people aren't thinking about, oh, the mic's going to come on as soon as I connect, and I still have my TV going or my music playing or whatever, and that way it doesn't flood the room for everybody else, and that way they can unmute themselves when they're ready to talk. Another new thing that Zoom has done is, I believe for the free accounts, they'll enable the waiting room for those accounts. And so this is a way for teachers to be able to admit students. This is just another safety feature that Zoom has put in place that allows the host to have control who enters the room. So the host would then have to admit every person into the room. My understanding is they will also give you the option to admit several people at one time. So this is definitely a good thing to do when you're working with students. The authenticated users, if you check this, then it's going to require them to sign in, I believe, with their Zoom account. So I would leave this unchecked, especially if you're working with parents or students, so that way you're not forcing them to create an account and then making just more confusion of trying to get in. You just want them to be able to click on the link, put in the password, and then be in your session. I typically like to record my meetings automatically and save it to my computer. That just keeps me from forgetting to actually start the recording. I think it's a good practice to record all of your meetings. You don't necessarily want to post them to the public or anything, but just to record them for documentation purposes. If anything arises later, then you have documentation of what went on during that meeting. And I'll also show you where you can have it automatically record the chat session as well. So I'm going to hit cancel on this just because I don't want to create a miscellaneous meeting. You won't have this section on yours for the free version. This is for the upgraded version only. So now, how do you get the meeting invitation? So I'm going to look at one that I've already created. So when I click on that, here's this copy the invitation. When I do that, it gives me all that information and it includes that password as well. And then here's where you find the link. Okay, so you just copy the invitation. It tells you it's copied to the clipboard, and then you can go to Google Classroom or however you're communicating with folks and paste that in there. If you have Outlook Client installed on your machine, you should be able to also click on this and add it to your calendar as well, and then send in invitations. Okay, so you can come in and edit a meeting after you have created it. If there's something that you missed, maybe you put AM instead of PM or vice versa, you can edit the meeting and make those changes. Okay, so that's the nuts and bolts of scheduling a meeting. Before you schedule too many, let's also look at some of this over here. This is just some information for you to review. The recording section tells you you won't have cloud recordings. Your recordings will go to your local machine, but it shows you where that's being saved and how it's being saved. So if you forget where it's saved, just know you can come to Zoom and look to see where each of those are being saved on your computer for future use. Because this is, again, it's great to just use this even when you don't have a class and just record whatever your presentation, whatever your lesson is, and then you can save it and then grab that recording and then post that into Google Classroom because you have no students in there, so no need to worry about any infringements on anyone. So let's look at the settings section. We're going to look at a few of these. I suggest that you really look at each one of these and turn on and off what you feel is appropriate for you. There are some as far as best practices for students that I'm going to point out. So if you scroll down just a little bit, I believe this, like I said, is turned on for all those free accounts, so you'll have that on there. Right here, I turn that on. That way that's just always checked for me and it's one less thing to check, so you might want to turn that on. So down here in the meeting basic section where it says private chat, turn that off if you're working with students. That way they're not able to chat with each other individually. If you have that private chat on, then students can privately chat each other without you knowing what's being said. So turn that off so there's no private chats going on. And then here's that auto saving of chats. Turn that on so wherever your video is recorded, your chats will also be recorded in there. So that way you have documentation of the video and of all of the texting that was going on within a session. So that's just to kind of cover you. Also, here's the screen sharing. Since I work with adults, then I allow all participants. If you're working with students, I would only have the host share. You have less control as the host as far as stopping who's showing what, and if they're showing something inappropriate, it's difficult to stop it without just leaving the meeting entirely. So I would turn screen sharing off, except for just the host only. Same with the annotation. The host is not able to remove the annotation, so I would keep that turned off while working with students. You might want to be careful when working with students if you're going to allow them to rename themselves, because you never know what they're going to rename themselves as. So you might turn that off while working with students. Same thing with the breakout room. I would not do the breakout rooms. Whenever you have breakout rooms, it sounds like a great idea to be able to provide groupings for students, but the host can only be in one room at a time. So while you're in one room, you don't know what's going on in another. So I would highly suggest not to do breakout rooms. I think those are the main highlights that we wanted to look at. That waiting room is also turned on automatically from Zoom, so I highly suggest you to keep that one on. That way you're only allowing students that you want in. So the rest of those, just really kind of look at those, and those are personal preferences. So just you can once you set these in here on this setting, it becomes as a default for every meeting afterwards. So hopefully that was helpful for how to schedule a meeting. So just shoot us an email if you have any questions or need some help with Zoom.